There are moments in history when an entire world collapses with nothing more than a quiet breath. No explosions, no gunfire, just a signature and a broken heart. On November 11, 1918, Europe celebrated peace. But in a small room in Vienna, a young man was losing everything: his throne, his empire, and the future of his family. This is not the story of a tyrant, not a power-hungry ruler, but the story of a last emperor who tried to save millions, and was crushed by the age he was born into. This is the tragedy of Karl, the 34-year-old final emperor of the Habsburgs, a man who watched a 650-year empire crumble right before his eyes. November 11, 1918, the cannons go silent. Germany surrenders. Europe finally breathes after 4 years in hell. But while the world celebrates peace, something else ends quietly in Vienna. Not with explosions, not with crowds, but with a moment that changed history forever. After 650 years, the Habsburg dynasty, one of Europe's greatest royal families, is forced to step down. And the man carrying this impossible weight is Karl, a 29-year-old emperor, young, hopeful, and utterly crushed by the age he lived in. For 6 decades, the empire had Franz Joseph, the man people called the grandfather of Europe. When he died in 1916, one question echoed across the continent: who could possibly replace him? Then came Karl, a gentle prince, barely experienced, never groomed to lead one of the most complicated empires on earth. The Habsburg realm was a puzzle of nations. 15 languages, dozens of ethnic groups, Catholics, Jews, Muslims, stretching from Italy to Poland, Croatia to the Czech lands, and Karl was asked to hold all of it together. At the exact moment it began to crack. He was a soldier at heart, calm, disciplined, soft-spoken. His wife, Empress Zita, was brilliant, loyal, and fiercely supportive. Their marriage was unusual for royalty, a real love story. Karl prayed every day. He prayed before meetings. People joked, if you can't find the emperor, he's in the chapel. When Karl was a child, someone foretold, the gates of hell will rise against him. No one knew how true that prophecy would become. Karl became emperor in the middle of World War I, and the empire was already bleeding out. Nearly 500,000 soldiers were dead. Karl walked the front lines, saw the mud, the bodies, the despair. Some said he cried openly. Back home, winters were cold, food was scarce. Karl created modern welfare and health ministries decades ahead of their time. Zita even ordered, if the people starve, the palace must eat what they eat. But Karl knew the truth. No reform could save the empire if the war didn't stop. And so he made a bold, dangerous choice. He tried to end World War I alone. Karl begged Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany to end the war. But German generals were intoxicated by hope. They believed their submarines would bring Britain to its knees. To them, Karl looked weak, soft, even cowardly. So Karl took the risk of a lifetime. He opened secret peace negotiations with France, using Zeta's brothers as messengers. In a private letter to the French president, he wrote, "We are enemies only for a moment in history. I want to end the suffering of millions." He even promised to pressure Germany to give up Alsace-Lorraine. But when the United States entered the war, the Allies no longer needed peace. Victory was already in sight. They wanted surrender. Total surrender. And then, Karl's secret was exposed. The Germans were furious, calling him a traitor. Austria-Hungary lost what little power it had left. Karl was pushed out of every negotiation table. His authority collapsed overnight. In the final months of 1918, everything fell apart. Czechoslovakia declared independence. Hungary broke away. The US recognized the new Republic of Austria. Soldiers deserted, workers revolted, crowds demanded freedom. Karl's last move was the People's Manifesto, a plan to turn the empire into a federation, a United States of Greater Austria. But it was far too late. Nationalism was a tidal wave no emperor could stop. On November 11, 1918, at exactly 11 a.m., World War I ended. And so did the 650-year reign of the Habsburgs. Karl stepped back from power, but refused to abdicate. A crown is not a job. It is a mission from God. And with those words, Karl, Zita, and their children left Vienna. Exiles of a vanished world. From Switzerland to two failed attempts to reclaim Hungary, Karl was eventually taken by the British to the island of Madeira, remote, cold, and far from everything. The family had no secret fortune, no savings, nothing. They lived in a damp, freezing house. But for Karl, it was a rare time of peace, walking with his children, praying, living simply. Then, early in 1922, Karl fell ill with pneumonia. There were no good doctors, no medicine. His body, already weakened by war and exhaustion, could not recover. In his final hours, he held Zita's hand and whispered, "I love you endlessly." He called out each child by name. And then, his last prayer: "If necessary, let my life be taken, so my people may be reunited." On April 1st, 1922, Karl, the last emperor of the Habsburgs, died. He was just 34. Zita wore mourning black for the next 67 years. Karl was not a great emperor in the traditional sense. He won no wars. He conquered no lands. He left no grand political achievements. But he was a good man, honest, kind, devoted to his family, devoted to his people, trying desperately to do what was right, even as the world collapsed around him. History is harsh to those born at the wrong time. Karl was made for peace, but lived in an age of destruction. And when he closed his eyes, a new Europe emerged from the ruins. Austria, Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, all born from the shattered remains of the Habsburg Empire. A world ended, and another began.